we go. And there's like a 20-second delay, so we'll probably be here. Okay. Hello, everyone. If you can hear me in the chat, type llama. Hello, hello. Okay, we are officially live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Noelia. I am one of our Etchr Studio hosts, and I am here today with Uma Kelkar, and she will be teaching us how to tackle night scenes with watercolor. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to remind you of a few housekeeping items. So if you have a question, please type question in all caps, followed by your question, and I will make a note of it. That'll help me find it in the chat, and we will be answering as many questions as we can today. If they are relevant to what Uma is doing, I will be asking it. If not, I will be saving it for a fun Q&A at the end. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we have free live demos every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday. And now we have some pop-up live demos here and there. So if you hit the subscribe button and the notifications, you will know when we're going live. Also, share this link, invite your friends to join us. And I will also be sharing with you guys a link for our feedback survey. So check it out. We would love to hear your thoughts on our live demos. Without further ado, Uma, it's all to you.
Good morning, everybody. So excited to be here and to be exposed to a new crowd, to make new friends all over the world, I hear. So I paint wet in wet, wet and dry, and I've been exploring light, the color of light and color of no light. And when I say color of no light, it's what is the color of shadows? What is the color when light is absent? What do I paint on my paper? And that's led me down a rabbit hole of physics a bit. And we'll go to a little bit of physics because I think you guys are up for it. But before I show the night scene that we're going to do and explain why the limited palette, I wanted to show some samples of work I have. Noelia, I'm going to go to the...
Cool.
So, oops. This is too big, so we'll do it on near my face then. So these are quarter sheets, and this is a top view, so looks very abstract. This is something this is a painting you will be doing together with me of a scene in a restaurant in San Francisco, if you join my mini workshop. And then, but I've been exploring different glows. Does only yellow glow or does blue glow too? And that's been my exploration of glow and understanding complementary colors, really subdued but not quite subdued work, and so on and so forth. We could make it a dark alleyway if you like. So these are all direct watercolors, street scenes, landscapes, you name it. I'm into color and color of no light right now. So I'm hoping you all have your reference photos ready. Noelia, do you want to share the reference photo just for a second?
Yeah, I can totally do that. I will post it in the chat. And by the way, Adina in the chat said, finally an engineer speaking my language.
Woohoo! Yay! The more I say I'm an engineer, I've found that we are in the art world. There are lots of engineers stuck in the woodwork, and they're coming out and saying, "Yeah, me too, me too. I love it. I love it." So, if you have the reference photo, and now I can go back to my paper.
Mm-hmm.
I've set up my paper. It's an Etchr sketchbook. And with a masking tape, the masking tape sometimes might be very hard to see because it's white in color. And it's white in color because other colors actually distract me while painting. But before I touch brush to paper, I want to talk about composition. The scene, and because the scene, I have drawn the scene several times, I'm able to make some decisions and
Hey,
share.
Uma.
Yeah.
I think we might need to do a quick camera adjustment because as you lean forward, we can see a little bit of your head.
Okay. How about now?
That's way better.
That's way better. Okay, so I'll step back a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. And thank you for the feedback. The reference picture is blurry, and that's not a bad thing. And the reason it's not a bad thing is because it makes things look so ambiguous. The power to change the composition now rests with everybody. I'm just going to draw the big shapes I saw in the picture. This was the sort of a slanting horizon right here. And there was a small alleyway, and the small alleyway was actually right dead center in the image, right? So there were three big shapes, 1, 2, 3, yeah? And this shape was the darkest, let's say. Now this being this small wedge-like structure being in the center of your picture is actually a problem because it makes a picture very boring. It's the same thing as having a composition like this. Anything symmetric is very peace-giving, but it can also go to become very boring. So if you change this picture to be, ooh, now you have a tension, and you have a tension of something squishing something. So this is a better composition. And similarly, that can be also taken to horizontal landscapes. So I'm going to move this portion a bit to the right. Looks like that. And if you're not drawing or sketching with me, right now you should be taking notes. Okay. That is an interesting composition.
Yeah.
And as an interesting composition, I'm just looking for big shapes, yeah? Again, first shape 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3. And then I have to, how did I divide up these shapes? There were multiple buildings here, right? Fine, there are multiple buildings, but I'm looking, if I squint my eyes and look for the bigger values, I see all of this is dark. You guys look at your reference picture again, yeah? And I know there are lights here all around the cityscape on the horizon. But this is even more dark. I'm gonna eat. The pen just seems to have run out of ink just now. Okay, yeah? Okay, so that's an interesting composition already. But that doesn't tell you or me anything about a city. So we need to put in just enough shapes so that it reads like a cityscape. Before that, make sure, see what I have done. If I look at the distance, this distance is unequal from this distance. This distance is to the peak, correct?
Yeah.
The reason I slanted this was this distance was not same as this distance. So without even drawing exact objects, we have started inserting variety. The street was coming straight down. I could have drawn a straight street like that, but no, I changed the angle here and then here. Correct?
Yeah.
That's also another variety. And just stand alone. This shape is just a more attractive shape. Okay, so we have 3 main shapes and 3 main values. We have the lowest value here, sorry, my pen, lowest value here, then the second lowest value here, and the dark is there. What does having the lowest value decide? We know exactly where we're going to start painting. You're painting, water is going to get dirty, so you're going to start painting this first. All good so far?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. Beautiful. But now this has to read like a painting and like a scene, a cityscape, right? So we need to install some buildings in it. But installing buildings when your point of view is very high. So this reference picture that you have shows you that your horizon is where your eye level is. You're way up on the top and the street is way under. So your eyes are here. Right? This is where you're looking. And then the buildings are under you. So the buildings here, here, here are going to be under you. Yeah. So how do you give that feeling of buildings, tall buildings, but under you? That feeling is given by perspective lines. Okay, so quick thing about perspective, because these things matter, and this will matter in the kind of brush strokes you will use. Does everybody see my paper, or do I need to move my lines, Noelia?
I can see your paper.
Perfect. And I'm just holding it in my hand, so it's a little, I can't do straight lines as much. So if the horizon was low, right here, draw radial lines. Radial lines are lines emanating from the center, from the source, going outwards. Yeah? And if you had buildings on top of this, sorry. This is required. Sorry, guys. Do you see one building 1, 2, and 3?
Yep.
Yeah, these are buildings. I've drawn them as small rectangles, but the tops of the buildings are along this line, this radial line, yeah, along the perspective. What? Because they slope towards this vanishing point, you and I think that we are standing somewhere here at this level. This is my eye level. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now when you have a street going sloping down, so you have multiple challenges in this painting. You're doing a night scene, you don't have light, and you have a street going down and then coming up. Yeah. So this down coming up has been achieved, already been achieved by this angle, down and up. Okay, that feeling you got. Now the buildings have to have the same, they have to read the same. Okay, let's draw it out again. And if your pencil is not moving, something's wrong, guys. And your horizon is way up, high up. I'm trying to figure out where the camera, okay.
You're good.
Yeah. And I'm radiating lines from them. And the buildings are lower, right? So this is my horizon line. Buildings are lower, so under this line, under my pen. So their tops are going to be here, here. So tops of my buildings are going to be these small triangles, tops of the buildings.
Gotcha.
Sorry, this marker isn't, but this is my building. This is a window. This is a window. So can you see these buildings feel like stepping, but they're stepping down. They're going away. They're going away because they became smaller. This building was the biggest. Mr. A was big and C was small. So they step away. And these triangles on the top are actually important because that gives you perspective that you are above these buildings. Fair enough?
Yeah, that makes sense. And we've actually have people in the chat saying that they love this explanation. Sarah said, I love that you are showing your planning process. Artists often skip these steps when giving demos, and it really is an integral part of the process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the reason I say this is because, Noelia, you can come to my face now. And the reason I say this is because the sketch we are going to do is pretty small. And I'm also going to paint at an angle. So if I'm going to paint at an angle, water is going to flow down, and it's going to flow down fast. So the time to make decisions, we'll have little time to make decisions, and you can make 1 or 2 decisions while you're painting. So if you have a scope of 10 questions, I like to answer those 8 beforehand. So you're left with less baggage to figure out while you're painting. And then, so we've got a perspective, we dissected the composition, we changed it a bit, we know the value structure, we know for sure that the perspective lines matter for the buildings that are just closest to us. The buildings that go far away, they flatten out, they're small, tiny slivers on the horizon, yeah? So we don't care about those lines. Okay, but then the other thing about painting a night scene is limited palette. And it is limited, why? It's limited because during daylight, when you have the sun hitting you, sun is sending out white light, which is light with all the wavelengths in it. So it's all visible and all invisible spectrum of wavelength also in it. And if sunlight hits something yellow, yellow light reflects back, correct? And if it hits red shirt, the red hits back, and you have a very colorful scene. But at night, what happens is the color of everything is tinted by the light source, especially street scenes where you have these orange lights, orange street lights, everything has a tinge of orange. And I'm going to prove that to you. This is exactly like having this feeling happen to you. Instead of orange, I have a green light. But what does green light, orange light do? People often paint a painting as though they would have painted a daytime scene and then put a dark color on top of it. That's not exactly how things happen. When you put orange light onto something that is blue, for example, because blue is its opposite color, the blue cannot reflect anything back. And because it can't reflect anything back, it looks darker. And to prove that point, I'm going to do an experiment. Okay?
I'm ready.
Right. Everybody sees this beautiful red brush I have in my hand?
Yep.
Yeah? And it's on the back of a dark colored book. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so now if I had to ask you, is the book darker or the brush lighter? Okay. If I were to ask you what was lighter, you would say the brush is lighter than the book, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, the brush is red, and I'm going to change the source of light to green. Your source of light is green. Is the brush darker or lighter?
It looks darker.
Exactly. So values change at night. This is going to be better. I removed something that was on it. Okay, come back again, okay? Brush is lighter.
Never mind, it's darker.
Yep. So what does that mean to you? How do we use this knowledge for night scenes? Well, if you draw a night scene with a yellow-orange light and have a bright blue shirt person right under it, something is wrong. There is no bright blue happening. Okay, and if it is happening, then in daylight, when you show me the same scene, that color of the shirt better be lime or something. It has to be, a lime thing can become cerulean blue when there is orange light. If you have a blue person and you just keep it blue when there is orange light on it, without changing its values, then something's off.
Gotcha.
Okay, how does this limit our palette? Limit our palette because there is orange or yellow light in the reference picture. And all I have to do is make this a value sketch. It goes value sketch not from white to black, but from yellow to black. When my black is not dark enough, okay, let's say you can't put the black is black on paper. When you do not have the contrast of values, just then, if you want to cheat, you can put the contrasting color in. But if you don't need that tool, let's not exploit it. Okay, and now we are ready to draw and paint right away.
Okay, could you repeat that
Noelia,
last thing? Can you repeat that last thing one more because you got a little bit caught off?
Sure. If our color palette has been decided by color of light, right now it's the street light, which is orangish and yellow, and the darkest dark is therefore going to be a darkest version of yellow, so it's going to be almost black. If the black in people's palettes is not black enough to make it look very dark, or if it's not giving a value impact, then they might want to cheat and use the contrasting color to yellow just a little bit to enhance their contrast.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's a trick, but don't overuse it, because then it's just like makeup. You have to be just there and then over it and you're like, ugh, right?
Yeah.
Use it in a precious manner.
Awesome. This was like a magic show and everybody learned so much. There are so many comments. It's hard for me to keep up with how super interesting this was. Kitty already signed up for your mini workshop. Very, very helpful and very interesting. So
I'm going to my paper. This is great news. I'm going to my paper. I'm still worried about the light. So if you'll tell me this is okay.
I can see it just fine. And people in the chat, if you need adjustments, let me know.
So I'm going to draw and everybody wants to draw at the same time. You do not want to copy me because we don't want to be copies of Uma. That's a very boring world. So you have to compose yourself. If you have been thinking and practicing this composition as we have been talking about, you don't even have to look at your reference picture anymore. So when you draw something bigger, what happens is suddenly there are empty spots you see, and you start getting scared as to what am I going to do. These blank spaces seem
I can see the triangles popping up now.
okay. So I always compose so that the eye of the onlooker stays inside this big space of white or lighter value.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this angled horizon, I'm going to come down, I'm going to come here because of dark values. I can imagine that, and I'm sorry. This will come to everybody eventually along their journey of painting. And then from here, I come here into the light valued shape, and then I'm going to exit away. So I don't want the eye to exit away. So there's a way I need for something to connect back. So I know there were small cars parked. So I'm going to use the parked cars to give me some dark shade. And the reason I need some dark shade is the car is going to create a shadow. This shadow is going to be it's going to be a small enough shape that connects and makes my eye go round. You see the angle I changed right here? Mm-hmm. While I was talking, I realized that shape was getting too boring and too symmetrical like that. Mm-hmm. That started bothering me. Sometimes when things start bothering you, pay attention. Your body, your mind, you are so used to watching things. Our eyes are pretty good. If this is a black car, this is another black car. I want to put another car, but if I put a third car, it can't be Tom, Dick, and Harry. We can have Tom, Dick, or Dick and Harry. You cannot have all three. So you got to put in either a different vehicle or a different color vehicle. Notice I put in a rectangle first. I put in a rectangle first because the car is close to me. The back of the car is close to me. The front of the car is sloped and away. Again, every time something goes away, the perspective is important. So these are the wheels. This is the back. Okay, I have a car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And the common string, so I'm going to show it right here. The common string in a painting sometimes is a zigzag form. So if you just say A happened, then B happened, then C happened, that is not a story. You got to connect the story. That reads as a better composition. So in this case, the pedestrian crossing, the yellow small slivers in the reference picture are actually going to be our connecting force. The perspective lines on your pedestrian crossing are also the same as the radial lines. So do not take a guess on those.
Yeah.
Man-made objects have sharp minds and our eyes are really tuned to them. Okay, our drawing is done and we are ready to paint. How's everybody doing on their drawing?
Let us know how you're doing on the drawing. And by the way, Uma, we're about 25 minutes in.
Perfect. All right.
By the way, Penguin's Creative just said, "Love this, Uma. Finally could watch one of your live demos."
Who said that?
Penguin's Creative.
Okay. So the reason I'm going to paint the zebra crossings the first is because they seem to be the yellowest in my reference picture. If they are the yellowest, I want to mix my yellow when my water is the cleanest. And my water is cleanest at the beginning. And it's not a chirpy yellow. It's sort of a dull yellow, even. So I'm going to make it a little dull yellow. Using a Monte Amiata or a raw yellow ochre, yeah. If it still is shouting, super happy to you, tone it down with a little bit of, sure, let's check. Is it that tends to a boring yellow? I like that. For the purpose, you know, even boredom has purpose. Okay, that's slightly. No, yeah, I know it shines. What reads colors better?
Try it one more time. Personally, I think that reads the color better than the other one.
Let's go. So no more adjustments, guys. So I'm gonna paint. Thank you, Noelia. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
Use a round brush, a small, not too tiny. You can go outside the lines right now, and you can because you're gonna come in and color the road anyway. Is it blurring?
It is blurring, and I think it's because your head is popping in the shot. I was about to tell you that.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm gonna take it back down to fake it into, and then
there we go.
Okay. Also, the street lights are on this line, so the light reduces as you go away. So I'm going to keep that yellowness around it. Even though this is working, this is going to dry up. So I'm going to keep the yellowness around. The only place I want it saved is around this white car, but otherwise I'm just putting in a wash of yellowness to add a feeling of glow around it. And every method I do, it doesn't mean it's the same method I would use for every painting. Yeah? But in a smaller paint, in a painting or in a sketch where we have not defined too many things, that's enough. Ah, what was that? That was the edge of my brush having a pigment picked a pigment that I did not see, so I'm going to take off. So even in the yellow, there's a lighter yellow on the top and a darker yellow closer to me. It's darker because it's richer because it's closer to me. Farther away, it's just going to become mixed.
Okay.
Okay. And while the painting is drying, I'm going to pick up the paint off of the masking tape. A lot of people don't do that, but paint never dries on your masking tape. And if it doesn't dry, you're going to pick it up. You're going to pick it up next time while painting, and it's going to get mixed in with, sometimes you want a pure orange and you suddenly get a blue because your brush stroke went on over the masking. Okay. With the back of my hand, it blurred again. No.
There we go.
Okay. So I'm going to show you my palette, and my palette's going to have a little bit of Monte Amiata, and I'm going to start adding. I'm going to make two mixes. I'm going to have a warm mix ready here. The reason I want it ready here is once I start using neutral tint, my water is going to get dirty. So if I want pure pigment, I'm going to pick it up from this tub going forward. I'm going to make a mix of that burnt, the Monte Amiata and the neutral tint. And that's my value, my second dark value, which is the sky. About now, yeah, nice. It's starting to look a little green. Don't care about it. Don't worry about it. Your strokes have to be confident. When they're confident, you'll have a nice. Any changes you see, let them be. You might get a beautiful cloud. You don't know. But the sky is not plain, so I'm going to introduce a darker value as it goes down.
Have you switched the brushes at all?
No, not yet.
Okay.
And then when I'm coming down and I'm waiting for all the pigment to run down a little bit. It takes a little time. And if the bead at the bottom is too big, I'm going to pick it up with a brush. If it is too big, some places like here, I really want it, so I've left it. Okay, I'm adding more neutral tint. If I add too much neutral tint, it's going to become boring. So I'm adding a brown to it to make it active. And now when I come to the horizon, look at my brushwork. So if you have not painted yet, look, I'm not pressing the brush completely. And I'm purposely leaving out some strips of white light. I'm just careful around the buildings that I know I want to take care of later on. Okay. Skippy marks are great. They also make you feel that you have okay. Oh my God, we almost have a scene there already, isn't it?
Yeah, that's, yes.
Oh, that was fast. Okay, but what about this area? So now this area, the strokes have to change. Why do the strokes have to change? Farther away on horizon, things were, they were leaner, they were linear, and they were flatter, they were more horizontal. As the buildings come up, they become vertical and vertical. So my strokes, which were flat here, need to change to become more and more vertical as we go along. Okay. What are the edges? You can be very loose in this painting. What are the places you need to be tight? The perspective lines, this white object, if you want to leave a white object. If you lose that object, this is not life or death. So that's okay. Okay. So I'm talking a lot. Need to paint now.
The explanations really do help, though.
This is still a little moist. Good. While it is moist, I want to put in the tops of my building. They are super dark. They're super dark, but it's really important I get that shape right. Okay. And then I'm going to make sure that my brush becomes a little smaller than it was. It's dark values. Even within the dark, there are different, you can see slight different values, slight variation in values, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
A horizontal, nice roof. That is definitely a roof. We have just stated it so comfortably. Another window, okay. It's time to stop messing on the top. You want to mess? Now that's when you change your brush. So here are the times when I do use these two Etchr brushes. One is the flat one that I use for the buildings, and then the smaller one for details. This is a little too wet. It depends where you are. I'm in California right now, and it's about 48 degrees, 50 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit outside, so it's pretty cold. So this isn't drying. So I'm going to change my plan. I'm going to paint the pavement first and then come to the buildings. If I paint the buildings and touch the top edges of the dark is going to run down, and I don't want that. Okay. I'm making a dominantly yellow. I don't have to. It's a very light wash I'm making. And the reason I'm making a light wash is because it's going in a second layer already. Yeah. This is the lightest part of the road, and this wants to be the darkest, and I'm going to just make sure that the pedestrian crossings are seen.
Uh-huh.
So need it to be slightly darker. Is my head in the way again?
No, not anymore.
Needs to be slightly darker. Don't worry, they're not going to be too dark. As soon as you put a shape under it, it'll run away. Okay, there we go. It runs away.
So you have your sketchbook slightly tilted, don't you?
I do, always. Okay, now, that's a big pedestrian crossing. That's too much. I'm going to kill a little bit of it because that's just odd to have a pedestrian crossing that's that long. What's required? While that is drying and I'm indecisive about it, I'm going to add some vertical marks to make it look like a building further. Okay, this is starting to read. These these slivers of light on the horizon, they look great, but if they have such a sharp edge, that can become too much. So we're gonna need to soften. So I'm gonna take a brush, which is already being cleaned. Let me check. Clean. No, it was not super clean. Okay, super clean it. It has to be damp. And I want to cut. I'm going to make some edges soft. Just some.
So you're just slightly tapping into the edges with a clean, wet brush.
Yeah, clean wet brush. And by contrast, I'm also going to add, while now I have wet certain pieces, right? For added visual contrast, I'm also coming with a really thick pigment and adding some features like towers. That was too much. Too much, the back of a nail, take it off. Okay, gone. Okay. Because we're still very much dependent on technology, these vertical lines give you a feeling of busy and developed cities. I'm going in and putting in my cars, very small cars. I'm just suggesting a car. I understand this is hard. I need a brush, bigger brush. How are we doing on the time, Noelia?
We are 40 minutes in.
Oh, okay. That was just a rectangle, right? Small rectangle. That's too babish. Something has to go. Okay. Just having ambiguity fixes things sometimes. Now this feels like it's floating. It's floating in the air. It's floating in the air because it's not connected to anything. So we need to fake it and connect it somehow. So make sure it's not floating. Okay, that's not floating anymore. It's not floating anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do with this car right here, the one on the right hand side. So my eye is not exactly crossing the road and coming back. So we need to do something for that. So these intents, what you want your composition to do, they have to be figured out before. By saying that I wanted my eye to come back around, I had made my intent clear. So I still might not meet that intent and have a pretty painting because we did the work of composing it and correct values and so on and so forth. But I like to be an efficient painter. So you have to get more than in every attempt. You can't just get a pretty picture. Okay, my eyes have moved to the right-hand side because of that shape. They have to come back to this car. So if they have to come back to the white car has no details. If you have no details, it's like being a one-tone shape. It's so boring. So let's give it some. And I'm actually faking the values, okay? Faking the values and just increasing. And just one rectangle in the back of the car makes that car pop up. Somehow it's real. Yeah? Or a rear view. Tires. You want the lights of a parked car when they are not red then. So don't paint them red unless it's driving. Okay. Questions, Noelia. I'm ready to take questions because the painting needs to dry at this point before
Okie dokie. I don't have many questions. I think everyone is so interested in what you have to teach that the chat is oddly quiet-ish. But I just had someone ask about the neutral tint that you are talking about. Is that a specific paint you're using? Did you mix it to create something? I mean, did you mix it to create it?
So historically, artists made their own neutral tint by using the primary colors and mixing it and making a pot of it and store it away. But now manufacturers help us and they sell a tube of neutral tint. The problem with neutral tint is that it is really neutral. So it's dull. It doesn't lean red, it doesn't lean blue. So you have to enhance it and have some chromatic value to it to make it sing. But it's like having a good sauce ready, a side recipe ready. So when you want to change your recipe, you just still get that onion, tomato, ginger, garlic mix always ready and add the meat to it.
So how would you mix your own neutral tint?
Okay. So actually, this is a good question. I wanted to pose a challenge to everybody here. Yeah, because art is about doing work. I want you to make your own recipes and tag Etchr Lab or what is the tag for the demos, Noelia?
Hashtag Etchr Mini Workshop.
Hashtag Etchr Mini Workshop and tag me and I'll come see your neutral tint. Put a small blob of neutral tint with a recipe, so have 3 blobs around it. And show me how you mix it and make your version of neutral tint and share with us.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'm looking at the painting and I'm unsure what to do. I know for sure that this car looks like a very babyish car. I want to do something to it. But I'm not 100% sold on it. But since I'm not 100% sold on it, I'm going to see if taking off the masking tape changes the way I look at my painting. Yeah. The reason we do this is, oh, that was a wrong order. The reason we do this is sometimes the masking tape and the dirt around the periphery also cons us into feeling disturbed about the painting. But in the big picture, when it's cleaned up, it doesn't look that bad.
As you're untaping that, Uma, do you have a specific hashtag for Instagram?
Uma Paints or at Uma Paints. UMAPAINTS. And I will write it on the top of the picture later on too.
Okay.
All right, so let's look at this. It looks attractive, but something's missing. Something's missing right here. Something's missing right here. My eye still leaves out. My eye still leaves out this because this yellow is really pretty. This yellow is really pretty. I need that eye to go to that yellow and come back to the dark. If I have to come back to the dark, I need to have some connection of dark from here to here. Okay. I need to do this with something that's not very clear, in the sense it's some shape with ambiguous values. So check values, good. I wanted such skippy strokes.
Okay.
Okay, this is the place where you either ruin it or make a good painting of it. So we should have a before and after snapshot. There's one other thing I see. I'm gonna slightly lower the value under the card. Okay, that's good. That card was really too white for the light conditions. Okay, that's better. That's really better because just the top looks important. Again. Yeah. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. If you're gasping, it's gonna be fine, guys. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna pick it up and it's gonna lower its value. Yeah. Yeah, and then we want this to go down.
Oh, wow.
All right. What did I do there? Why did I wipe it at an angle? That was just more interesting than everything being rectangular, flat, 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 flat. Again, stories go in zigzag fashion, often. I'm ready to take questions, but I'm also going to tag
your Instagram account. I think people are mesmerized by what you're doing, and they're trying. A lot of them are following along and are trying to catch up with what you're doing. But if you all have any questions, please type them in the chat, and we will love to answer them. Or I guess Uma will answer them, and I will ask them.
Perfect, perfect.
And you make me think you're more of a magician than an engineer, Uma. This looks amazing.
No. I can show you something I did yesterday. And the reason I did something yesterday was to prove the point that you can't put blue if your main source of light is yellow, and how differently and unreal it looks. It can look attractive, but it still looks boring. So this was the first night scene that I did. And guys, if you'll notice, I still did a pencil thumbnail too. And the pencil thumbnail, this is a small sketch, and then the pencil thumbnail is even smaller, but it has power. It has power to make decisions for you. So this is really useful. But if I make this dark into blue, this is how it looks. And to some folks I know, and this is not insulting, okay, where our taste diverges, This might look attractive to people, but this looks unreal to me. And if you're a realistic, if your impressionistic art leads realistic, then I tend to go this way.
Huh.
Just an experiment. Go ahead, do experiments yourself. Don't forget to make your neutral tint. You can have varied neutral tints. For example, I made my own neutral tint too in this case, but I made sure that it has, I'm not sure the camera shows, but this has a pinkish tint to it.
Mm-hmm.
So all colors are going from this light to pink. The only aberration is actually this yellow.
Huh. Interesting.
Yes.
Cool. I have some questions for you now. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Do you have a particular brand of paint that you like, or do you mix brands? And JD Corrigan asks that question.
Got it. I do mix brands. I do mix brands a lot. And in fact, I'm right now experimenting with the Sennelier pigments. I started with Holbein, then I went to Winsor Newton, then Daniel Smith. There are certain colors I like from Holbein, certain colors I like from Daniel Smith. And now I'm exploring colors from Sennelier, which is a French make, and it's honey-based. So don't eat it still. It's just that it lets the paint be gooier longer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Wet pages.
Could you tell us about the topic for your mini workshop?
Of course, it's also a night scene, but I want to capture, it will have more than a limited palette. I want to capture, I'm going to show you the painting right now. It's going to be just this, actually.
Oops, let me.
Can I show it here? Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
So we will be doing this scene, and you can see we will be doing this scene wet in wet. There are no pencil marks. There are very less pencil marks. And the dry strokes like this or suggestion of windows were the only things that came at the end. Otherwise, the paint was moving. And if paint was not moving, if you looked at the side of the paper, it was glistening throughout. So the idea is to how to get a darkest dark in contrast with the lightest light to have the glow. Because if I take off this orange, you will see the rest of the colors are pretty boring.
Yeah.
So so we'll talk about how do you make a painting interesting. See, that's not as interesting as that.
Mm-hmm.
And why? We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about employing wet and wet. So in wet and wet, the problem with wet and wet is because a lot of time is spent in waiting. But that's not what videos show. It's a very hastened, fast process. You just add pigment, just make those brush strokes. And that's not exactly what happens. You have to figure out when to insert the pigment on the paper, and that's what I will teach. Looking for feedback from your paper. The shine is telling you information, giving you information, and we are all smart painters. Okay, engineers, smart loops are made because of feedback. So we are going to have a lot of feedback from the paper and make smart paintings during our workshop.
Awesome. Thank you, Uma. That reminds me, for all of you who have joined us today, we would really appreciate your feedback. So I'm going to throw the link to our survey back in the chat. And I have another question for you, Uma. This is from Natalie Montalva. At the same level than the car in your painting now, there is a dark blob you interfered with fingers. Is that for balance, or where were you directing the eye of the viewer?
So she's probably talking about the top?
Yeah.
The shape of the car became just like a 5-year-old would draw a car, a rectangular box and a nice dome on it. And that, because that shape was so sharp and right in front of you, I'm gonna have to sneeze.
Bless you.
that was going to give a very childish feel to the whole painting. I know my emphasis on painting is to be very ambiguous. So I had to make sure that this car also looked ambiguous. If it was not ambiguous and it was clear, then it had to have good drawing like this car.
Mm-hmm.
This car doesn't have good drawing, yeah? So then make it ambiguous, don't highlight it.
Gotcha. So it was supposed to be a car and it was too squarey, and so you
Yeah.
edited it.
Yep.
Cool.
It
Thank
do
you.
its job, yeah.
Adina asks, how long did it take you to develop this process?
I don't know.
That's a fair answer.
I think teaching has helped actually, because every time I had to teach, I had to verbalize. Until I didn't have to teach, I didn't have to explain it to anybody. And so I just kept on painting. The more teaching I do, the wiser I have gotten because of the students and the questions. So appreciate that.
Cool. I think I have one more question. Could you show us again how you drew your little cars?
Sure, I'm going to move my.
There we go.
Rectangles, 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 rectangles. That's a rectangle, correct?
Mm-hmm.
3D rectangle list. Right? You know, the back of the car is about that. The same, if you had that, okay, and the top of the car. So now we have this rectangle. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
The wheels are also on a rectangle right here. Sorry, this line is.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm purposely drawn a bigger wheel. The wheels look small, or shorter, or they go up into the body. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If it extrudes out, if the back extrudes out, like
There
a
you
truck.
go. Yeah.
Right? Got a truck with a window back there, that will become a truck right away. You want to have a big mirror, that becomes a truck right away.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And the wheels have to move too.
Right. Right.
Everything can be fit into a rectangle. It really can be.
Thank you. And a lot of people in the chat are saying thank you. Love the loose style that you achieve. Looks easy, but it's not. People have been loving this. It's really hard for me to express or convey all the lovely comments in the chat. And by the way, we have a podcast with Etchr that Uma participated in, and I'll be dropping the link there because I listened to it a couple of days ago and it's amazing. It was really fun to hear an engineering perspective mixture with art, about art and engineering. I can't find words to describe it. Just go listen to it. It was awesome.
Yay, I'm happy. And Noelia, thank you for having me and being the communicator between the between the audience and me. You kept up my hopes and my courage going on. Anya did the same thing on the podcast, so the Etchr team really kicks ass.
Oh, thank you, Uma. That means so much. And that is it for today. So don't forget to sign up for Uma's mini workshop. I'll drop that link in the chat again. Don't forget to give us some feedback and check out her podcast. And lastly, as always, share your artwork with us. We'd love to see it. So if you post it on social media, tag us with Etchr Mini Workshop and we will check it out. Don't forget to do your neutral tint. I can't English today. Neutral tint recipe as well.
Perfect. Neutral tint recipes. That's right.
Awesome. Okay, bye everyone. I got stuck.
Noelia, should I quit or?
Give me a second. I lost my mouse. There we go. Bye everyone for real this time. There we go. I lost my mouse, so I couldn't end